where exactly was the captain when his ship still needed him most? Investigators struggled to piece together the timeline from witness statements and media interviews, where memories are often colored by trauma or self-preservation. The Voyage data recorder offered a different kind of testimony. It had never forgotten a single second. This machine was incapable of panic, reputation protection, or changing its story. With the recovery of this device, investigators moved past subjective opinions to find the exact, verifiable moment the disaster became inevitable. They pressed play, and the final hour of the Costa Concordia echoed through the investigation room. The early recordings sound completely ordinary. Voices on the bridge are calm and professional, as navigation officers discuss the approaching coastline and confirm exactly how close the ship is sailing to Giglio Island. The warnings come first. This radar data shows the ship's navigation systems indicating an approach into dangerously shallow water. Officers begin calculating distances as the margin for error rapidly disappears. Seconds later, the impact. The recordings capture the violent scrape of steel against granite, validating the descriptions provided by passengers. But investigators weren't shocked by the collision itself. They were disturbed by the lack of immediate, decisive reaction that followed it. Instead of clear commands, valuable minutes disappeared into internal questions and discussions among the officers on the bridge. While thousands of passengers waited in the dark, believing they were experiencing a temporary electrical failure, the bridge already knew the ship had suffered catastrophic damage. Every second of hesitation was preserved forever. The recorder documented the delay with brutal precision, removing any possibility of conflicting memories. By the time an evacuation was finally ordered, the physical reality of the sinking vessels severely hindered the process. The ship's extreme tilt made navigating the decks and launching lifeboats difficult. Prosecutors would later argue that these specifically documented lost minutes robbed passengers of the time needed to safely launch lifeboats and prevent panic. Then, investigators reached another set of recordings, the radio conversations between the ship and the Coast Guard, which had already made international headlines. Listening as criminal investigators meant testing every sentence, every pause, and every explanation against the physical evidence sitting in front of them. This timeline compares the audio broadcast over the radio against the data recorded by the black box. The narrative constructed on air did not match the ship's physical reality. Looking closely at this specific cluster of data, the timeline shows the bridge denying the severity of the situation to the Coast Guard, while internal alarms are actively sounding in the background. This one specific misalignment transformed a tragic maritime accident into a formal criminal investigation of the leadership's actions. The setting shifted from the wreckage to the legal arena. Witnesses took the stand, each carrying a different memory of the same night. Survivors recounted the darkness and the lack of instruction, revealing the deep emotional toll of the evacuation. Captain Francesco Schettino stood before the judges, insisting he never intended to endanger anyone. He argued that impossible circumstances had overwhelmed everyone on board and denied acting with reckless intent. Prosecutors presented a different sequence of events. They argued the disaster was the direct result of a single risky maneuver, compounded by a devastating failure of command. The trial was an attempt to answer a highly specific legal question. Exactly when does a severe mistake cross the line into criminal responsibility? Long after the legal verdict was delivered, a secondary debate continued among the public, fueled by the same conflicting evidence presented in the courtroom. Ask two people what happened, and you'll often hear two different perspectives. One sees a captain overwhelmed by an impossible emergency, while the other sees a leader who failed when thousands depended on him most. Somewhere between the official verdict, the survivor memories, and the final data captured inside that black box, one haunting question still remains unresolved today. When disaster strikes in the dead of night, what does real leadership actually look like? The events of that night remain a permanent reference point for maritime safety and the consequences of leadership failure. The file is never closed. The truth is still waiting. Subscribe for the next Dark Dossier.